Welcome to Backyards and Bevvies. Grab your favorite bevy, pull up a chair, and enjoy the ride. Hey, welcome to Backyards and Bevvies. This is the not so frozen out edition.
It's a little cold. I have on a lot of layers and I'm still cold.
But welcome to Backyards and Bevvies.
Yeah.
This is episode 6, your midweek treat for laughs and life lessons. This is clearly a journey through BK and my life.
Mm-hmm.
Before we met, after we've met, during we've met.
All the things in between, during we've met. I don't think that's proper grammar.
I was trying to keep all the Mets in the same place.
All the Mets.
Yeah, it truly is a journey though, and it's been fun to interact now with guests on the show.
Mm-hmm.
It's been fun to interact with people who are viewing the show because they've been able to give feedback and we're definitely on to a pace of where we are in life is definitely a blessing. We're
oh my gosh, so blessed.
At a point in our lives where we wake up and all we can have is gratitude.
Yes. Which is a great feeling.
It is. It would be very wrong of us to wake up and say that we have it hard.
We do not have it hard. We don't have it easy, but we don't have it hard.
Well, no, but I think that's the thing though, is that's life though, right? Like you wake up and you're like, oh, man, today stinks. Today, I woke up this morning and I really didn't want to work out. I
was proud of you for getting up. I stayed in bed.
I didn't.
But go you.
But we've been on a 2-week hiatus from us having BK and PK time on the show.
Yes, true.
And we've been able to, I already pre-recorded, let's say a handful of episodes. So it's been nice to, you had something that you had to go to down in Florida, a bachelorette party.
I did. I had a bachelorette party for one of my really close friends, and it was last weekend. I was in Florida, and it was my first time ever away from you and our little baby Nugget. So I survived. Yeah. I didn't have any freakouts. Well, no, but you and the Nugget. Ever since we've had
together
our son, I have never spent an evening away, and I had 2 nights away.
Yeah.
So it was hard, but it was good. It was good to go have some relaxing, fun time with a good group of girls, and
if you want to adjust your mic there, not to
What's wrong
ruin
with
the show.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay.
Yeah, you're a little off center there.
Well, I just wanted them to see my pretty face.
It is pretty.
J/K.
And no, you and I missed you. I don't.
I missed you.
It's hard for me. I think I've missed 2 people in my life. Really, but up until the last year, I've kind of been a nomad, and so it was always being home for me was always hard. So now I'm the one that wants to stay home. You're the one that's always like, gosh, I can't wait to get away.
That is so not true. Don't lie to our listeners. It was so hard for me to leave. I probably kissed our son 1,000 times before I went to the airport.
It was so hard to keep your bags from running. I think you ordered an Uber 4 hours early.
I did no such thing. I didn't even take an Uber. Lord knows you couldn't drive me.
No. And it was a wild 2 weeks, though.
It was.
We got remarried.
We did. You want to explain why we did that?
I think I'm going to go into a short explanation.
Yes.
We can always go back to
Brief
it. But
explanation.
we got married in our backyard a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to... We have re-found our faith.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've gone back to church, which is something I never, ever thought I would do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because I was forced. And we can get to that later. But so, long story short, we got married in my backyard, our backyard.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Yes, this backyard that's right behind us right now.
Yeah, and it was small. It was very intimate. It was awesome. We got married with some of our closest friends, and our family, basically.
Yeah.
And, no offense to anyone that wasn't invited, just it was very, very small and it was done.
Yeah.
And we wanted it to be quick, basically. We didn't want it to be some long deal.
Right.
So fast forward to this year, we were like, you know what? If we're going to do this whole family thing different and be different, especially on my side, if I wanted to be a different entity than I wanted, that I had always thought I was going to turn out to be, or something, I don't know, really have the words. Not to say that my parents were horrible people.
No, certainly not.
By no means that, but I wanted to do it differently and better.
Well, I think really what it boiled down to was, like you said, our faith had been renewed over the past year or so, and we wanted to get remarried in the church to where our marriage was
looked at it by something
joined with God and not just us.
Way bigger than us.
Yeah.
And there's something accountable about that, and I've never held myself accountable. But the past 2 weeks were joyous. They were awesome. We had family here. We had laughs. We had our friends. Like, my best friend was in town. I mean, there was a lot going on.
It was a very busy 2 weeks. Yeah.
I went into depression.
Yeah.
Like, I fell into a weird, and I think it's because of my wild work ethic that I've always held and my wild standards that I've always held to myself, and I thought that I was failing at something else, though I was having everything that I kind of have always wanted with a family. Like, deep down I was like, oh my gosh, I'm letting the podcast sit. I haven't been posting memes on social media. I haven't been attending to just the little details because I'd gotten into a new
You're out of your routine.
Yeah, I hadn't worked out a couple times. I'd gotten hammered, drunk a couple times.
And for our listeners that don't know us super well, I mean, you get up every day. No joke, y'all. Every single day at 4:30 a.m. and you work out. And when you don't do that, it definitely throws you off.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think Sundays and Saturdays.
And you drink very rarely nowadays.
I do, yeah. Like, I'll have
or if you do drink, you have a couple.
Well, I'll have them on Saturdays during the recording process and stuff like that. But
it's a couple. It's not a Frank the Tank PK comes out.
PK the Tank.
PK the Tank came out this past weekend, yes.
PK the Tank, definitely. I didn't run naked down the street.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness for our neighbors'
It would have been an intense thing for me to come home to.
It was wildly cold for my own embarrassment. But that's why I'm sipping on this Don Chelada.
Yeah, you guys got those while I was out of town at a gas station or something, right?
It's actually at the food market up the street.
Oh, at Garden Fresh. We love that place.
Yeah.
What's funny, you guys, is we were both going to drink these Don Cheladas, but I am on a low sodium diet because I have high blood pressure caused by my pregnancy. And
lame.
We were about to make my Don Chelada, and I looked at the back, and I was like, how much sodium is in this? Almost an entire day's worth. And I was like, I think I'm going to have some bourbon instead. So I'm drinking Monkey Shoulder, which is this delicious Scotch whiskey. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm giving a hard pass on the 1,040 milligrams of sodium that are in that bad boy before you even pour a beer in there.
I love sodium.
You do.
But yeah, these are our drinks today. These are our Bevvies. Cheers, by the way.
Yeah.
Our sound effects are amazing.
You have to drink it or it's bad.
Oh, yeah, sorry. But I definitely had a rough awakening right after my BFF left. And it wasn't a sad... what's crazy is I wasn't sad. Like, there was no moment that I was sad, but I was down. Like, I was down. I was... my anxiety was high. High. And I think I wanted to talk about it, not because, look, everyone deals with it, right? And it wasn't for a pity party. It wasn't because, like, oh, poor Phil.
No, but sometimes you just need to talk about it. Communication is very key.
Well, I think a lot of people look at me in general and see tattoos. I'm not the fittest man in the world, but
you're pretty fit.
But I'm pretty fit. Like, I seem pretty happy 95% of the time. Yeah. So I thought it would be really interesting because I have had it before. People are like, well, yeah, but you don't have anything bad going on. And I don't have anything bad going on. But that doesn't mean that I can't suffer from something deep inside of me.
Well, look, I mean, having like life-altering bad events happen, most people don't experience those all the time.
No.
But that doesn't mean that you can't have anxiety or be anxious or nervous or wound up about just daily things in your life. I mean, I think that especially nowadays, a lot of people suffer from some pretty fierce anxiety.
There is. There's definitely not only job, family, image, I think is a big one. I think
certainly.
That, and I suffer from all three. But I will say though that over the years, I've thought I have found things. I truly have. Like, we can go through almost like the Christmas Carol, the past, the present, and the future. And it's interesting because each one, well, two of them have satisfied me momentarily. And it always made me push harder into those realms. Like, okay, well, that was fun. So let me go, like, I felt better for a moment. So let me go even harder next time. Or let me go even harder next time. And surprisingly, it wasn't drugs.
That's good.
If anything, I stayed away from drugs so I'd have a better mental picture of how I could, how I could get better at it. And one of them is still around, and that's the gym.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely always been a good release for you. I mean, the whole time I've known you.
Yeah. That would be my... ever since high school. I think that was my first moment of image. Like, oh, I need to try to get a six-pack. Or I need to try to be whatever, thinner. Or how is it possible that all my friends can sit around and drink beer all night long and not gain a pound, and I'm just tubbing up over here? But I think the gym was my first go at going hard into depression and anxiety and being able to work it off.
Yeah. So that was like your major release of being able to work through those things.
I could go in the morning. I could wake up, and if I felt down, I knew exactly where I could go. Well, and then too, you could take what was called like Rip Fuel. I think at the time it had ephedrine in it.
Right. Well, I was going to say, because your body naturally releases endorphins and things like that when you do work out, so it's automatically going to give you an upper. And
this was an upper to not necessarily for your mind or body. It was for your body. Yeah. But it was. Yeah, and I would go
burst of energy hard, and
and it was nice though because then I could go drink the night before. I could eat whatever I wanted, and I was young enough to work it all off.
Gets harder every year.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, and this is another completely different time, but I gained over 100 pounds out of high school because when I didn't have the gym. I went the completely opposite direction. Like, well, if I'm not gonna do this, and whatever, I'm not gonna do it at all.
Yeah, you go in that like downward spiral.
Hard downward spiral.
Yeah,
and it's easy though. I think that it was very easy for me to hit. Well, I guess it's easy for anybody to gain weight, but it was easy for me to get there because all I did was drink, party, eat, drink, party, eat, show up to work. Yeah. Yeah, if you're not getting any exercise and you're not taking care of yourself as far as what you're putting into your body, that will 100% just crush you. Yeah. Now, the gym to me is a different thing. It's my just start to the day.
It's amazing that you lost 100 pounds.
It was somewhere in there. I mean, like, I've gotten down. I think now total I'm like 85 pounds down from where I was.
You are very, very healthy. I know you're very hard on yourself, like you said a little bit ago, and the body image and societal pressures and things like that make it even harder for sure. But you look great, and you're very, very healthy. Like if you went to a doctor or something and they checked out your BMI and did all that, I mean, you'd be crushing it for sure. But I mean, I completely understand
I'm in the low
where
teens
you're coming
usually
from
nowadays with like my body fat and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, it's not for the body image. It's strictly because I know that one day my kids are going to try to outdo me, and I want to outdo them till I'm like 80.
You gotta be ready. You gotta be ready to run around, jump on that dirt bike.
I want to be that dad to be like, like you are not outrunning me.
You want to wrestle?
Yeah,
I'm in. I'll wrestle.
Let's go Greco style wrestling in the backyard.
Because you're gonna be 39 next weekend, right? Yeah, so exciting.
I was really trying to.
You don't look anywhere close to 39.
I still get. I think the last time I got 20s was maybe a year ago.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Which is nice. It's a good feeling. I would say. Well, I started lying a long time ago.
Of course
I started telling
did.
people I was like 45, and they'd be like, "Wow, you look great for 45."
You look so good, and you're like, "I'm really like 30." But
well, yeah, why try to pass 25 when people would be like, "Oh my gosh, you look amazing for 45"? I'd be like, "Dang straight, I do."
Except I'm nowhere near that age. What a silly thing to lie about.
Well, that was my next one. But what was yours? I mean, do you have do you have like one that's in the past that?
It's in the past, but is also still present. I mean, I guess I would say, I think what you just said with the gym and working out being one of your releases for getting rid of anxiety, like that's a healthy way to get rid of anxiety.
Yeah.
And I would say I've definitely had healthy and unhealthy ways that I've dealt with it.
With the gym?
No, not with the gym. I've never been super into working out. I played sports a lot growing up, and I used to, before I had to have my second knee surgery, which you were there for, I was really into spin, and I loved that, and that was probably the best shape I've ever been in. And I would love to get back into it, but it is expensive. So one day, but no, the first real release that I can think of that would really help me with stress and anxiety has always been music.
Ah, okay. That's a good one.
Back when I was in my band, that was a major release for me. Just going to band practice and being able to just like sing as hard as I possibly could, really just getting out anything and everything that I was feeling, whether it be happy, sad, angry, all of the emotions, and then moving to being on stage, being able to release those types of emotions and anxieties and things like that and have the crowd react to it and have it resonate with people.
Yeah. That
was a huge release for me. And that's been something that I've really missed over the years. However, even just listening to music really, really loud, if I am like really feeling something, and I go into like some of the playlists that I have, depending on the mood, that can still really help me kind of get away and reset mentally and emotionally if needed.
So when I hear you screaming Tool in the shower and I'm in the living room, I know what's happening.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily like, the music may sound angry or something, but that doesn't mean that I am angry.
No, I got you.
It's more of just...
Though there's triggers in life.
Yeah, there's just always been something about listening to music where it makes me feel like it's moving through me versus just like around me that has taken me to another place.
Yeah. I think that's a very good, and that's I think a lot of people's release is music. I think a lot of people rely on, whether it be listening to something that is fast paced or something that's slow paced or whatever. I think each person has a song, a go-to song too, that will start it which will pull you out of your headspace.
Yeah, for sure.
Or at least calm you down.
For sure. And I mean, I think, like my job will at times get very overwhelming and very stressful. And it can get you to the point of where you're like, what? Like, why do I do this? Like, this is crazy. And then I go to a live show for one of my artists.
Yeah.
And it just completely puts me back in the right headspace of like, oh yeah, this is why I do this. Yeah. Because being able to be a part of something like this that can bring people happiness and give them a release and stuff, it does the same thing for me.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of people cry at shows.
Oh, 100%.
Even at bands that you would never think that you should cry at a show.
Happy tears, sad tears, all of them.
So would you say that, because to me, I don't have a job anymore.
Yes, you do. You have a very important job.
Well, okay. You have two jobs. What I thought was my job forever. Mm-hmm. I don't do that anymore.
No.
And I thought that would actually trigger me more.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, I always thought that I was a roadie. Mm-hmm. Only a roadie. I never thought that I would be a dad. I never thought that I'd be a stay-at-home dad. I never thought that I'd be a podcaster or a content creator or anything like that. I was a roadie, and that defined me for years. So getting off the road, I was actually more nervous to the fact that I wouldn't have that validation. Because that work thing used to trigger me.
Yeah.
And it was a weird balance. Like, it would trigger me, and then I would go to the gym, and then I'd feel better. And then the next day it would trigger me again.
Yeah.
And then I'd have the stress of work. Then I would have the release of the show. Then I would have the stress of work again.
Yep.
And then the next morning I could go to the gym.
I always knew you were having a stressful day when you would FaceTime me from the hotel gym and you'd been on the treadmill for like an hour already.
I used to
after doing your morning workout.
Yeah.
You would then, which was already an hour and a half or something, and then you'd go and you would get on that treadmill and just be on there for forever.
If it was a stressful tour, I loved it because I knew that I would then be in the best shape of my life.
Yeah.
It was a wild feeling because I think the best shape I got into, I was like 7% body fat. I mean, I was like...
That was when you were super into keto, I remember.
I was like...
do those bacon cream cheese sandwiches.
And I worked out. Some days I'd work
2
out
days,
4 hours.
3 days, yeah.
4 hours a day. Because then during the show days, I would do stairs.
Right, I remember that.
So I'd get up at like 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning. I'd work out before lobby call. I'd go get on the bus, go... be stressed out because of whatever. And what's funny is I would create my own stress too, probably. Which I'm going to admit to is I think I'm less stressful now because I understand that I don't need to create stress to be happy in life.
Right.
And so maybe there's something to be said about that. So leaving the road potentially was healthy for me.
I think
because I was treating it as a vice.
For sure.
And so getting here now, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to be stressed about that. And you know what's surprising? I was not stressed about that.
It's amazing.
I
feel like it goes to show you just how unhealthy it was.
Yes, 100%. But then now, fast forward, now I'm the stay-at-home dad / content creator.
Yeah.
And I want to say, though, that there has to be an equally happy balance. And I think that I let myself last week get back into my road mentality where I wasn't seeing product happening. And I was like, why are we standing around? Why are we standing around? Why am I standing around? Because I couldn't blame anyone else. I could only blame myself.
But I think that's something you also have to learn how to manage.
100%,
is getting into that headspace. Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with taking a break.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to be go all the time, but that's what you've been trained to do, basically.
Yeah.
So when you are idle, so to speak, because you have family in town or friends in town or whatever, you know, it's all about learning how to maintain balance.
Balance is definitely something that I now am learning. And I think it's funny because my little nugget is the one that's showing me that balance and patience and all that stuff.
Yeah.
it was just such an interesting thing that I let myself. I mean, I went like a year and a half, very unstressful. Maybe okay. Let's just say 6 months.
I don't know if I would say it was unstressful. I don't think you went at all without stress. It was just a different kind of stress.
Well, I think too, to me, like leaving the warehouse gig, I realized that I do have to be my own boss, and this was my one chance in life. No, maybe not my one chance in life, but this was a real chance and a real time to say, okay, if I'm going to do all the things that I ever wanted to do, then I have to sit and harness that energy. Mm-hmm. But that last week, I didn't harness it correctly. And so I let myself get depressed. I let my anxiety run crazy. And so,
So were you dealing with your anxiety in an unhealthy way?
Well, then the one thing I didn't have was I didn't have the gym, because then I was drinking.
Right.
So then I was hoping that, like, I didn't go to drugs.
Right.
But I wasn't working out. But I was drinking to almost offset it. So again, there was a tad bit of unhealthiness there.
So you were dealing with your anxiety by drinking, which was causing more anxiety. Mm-hmm. So it's this vicious cycle that you can't get out of.
Well, I did. But
you did, absolutely. Thank goodness.
But it's because, too, I also have learned how to harness my social media.
Yes. And that's been a big test for you.
Well, it has, because on tour I used it in such a negative way. So you would say that work would be your number one trigger for anxiety? And
I guess in some ways, maybe previously, but I've definitely learned how to
because that was the past.
Manage it a lot better. I mean, when we first met, I was very much a workaholic. I think that's a real thing, to be addicted to your work. And I don't, checking my email is not the first thing I do when I wake up. And it was for a very long time.
We don't even sleep with the phones.
No, I used to sleep with my phone next to me, under my pillow. I would open my eyes, grab my phone, and check my email before even saying good morning to you or anything like that.
Yeah.
And it would be the very last thing I would do before I went to bed. Kiss you goodnight. And before I closed my eyes, check my email.
Yeah.
So I definitely think I've gotten a much better handle on that. It's all about boundaries. And setting boundaries has been hard in some ways, especially in the type of job that I have. There are only so many boundaries that you can set, because being a manager, there are certain expectations that come with that, which are that you are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Doesn't matter if it's Christmas. Yeah. You are available.
Well, because you're not managing your typical retail store either.
No.
And that goes, I mean, not that they aren't busy, but you're dealing with.
You're never closed for business.
You're dealing with a person.
So, yeah. So I mean, thankfully, my artists are very respectful of family time and personal time and things like that, because they need it themselves.
True.
But, there are some times when there are fires that need to be put out or things that need to be handled or something, and that might be at 1:00 in the morning, but it's very rare, thankfully. But I also had to learn to say no to myself. You don't have to answer this email 3 seconds after it came in. The building is not going to burn down because you don't answer this email until tomorrow.
True. And I think we're the type of personality that our phones don't have a bunch of the numbers in like the message boxes. Like it
has to be at 0. It's so satisfying.
But that's the
no notifications.
Like, our anxiety is on like something like that side, when there's other people that deal with anxiety where they have 20,000 emails.
I can't look at phones like
that.
But
they'll deal with like a completely other thing. So it's just to say that every person deals with anxiety just
different. Yeah.
Well, and there's different triggers. Like ours are something of a tidiness. I think that's what attracted me to you, is that workaholic. But then I realized that wasn't what I wanted.
Right. Workaholic is different than being driven. And that was where I had to figure out how to have that balance.
That's a really awesome thing to say, because a lot of the people I follow now, because I mentioned like I've harnessed social media instead of following all the big boob girls in skimpy bikinis.
Thanks for that.
Well, but to have a healthy marriage,
yeah,
it's unhealthy for me to only look at that.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, I will be the first to tell you that if there is an attractive girl in the room, and you're the first to probably tell me before I tell you. But that's a different...
Nothing wrong with appreciating somebody that's good looking.
100%. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's a difference between spending my entire morning looking at something like that and then trying to then go about my day in a real sense of life. Like, okay, that's Instagram.
Yeah.
But then I started following all these people that say exactly what you're saying. Just because you are working 24/7, 365, and just sweating, you might be doing that on a treadmill.
Yeah.
Driven is the person that has figured out how to do it, maybe
efficiently.
Efficiently, 4 days a week. And they balance their family, they balance all those things.
Yeah.
And so I think as we grew as a couple, that my past stuff started to slowly go away. I was like, oh, wow. But I will say, though, that I still dealt with dealing, like, even prior to you, like, way before you, I always dealt with, and this is going to sound crazy, but I dealt with, my other side of anxiety, and this wouldn't be the future, I guess this would be past still too, but with sex. Like, I was I wouldn't say a sexaholic, but I dealt with how many girls can I date and how fast can I turn them around and
move on to the next. Yeah.
And it was because I always thought that I could find something better.
And I think a lot of that boils down to insecurity as well.
Well, I think that it's just that long list. Yeah. Insecurity, anxiety. Well, she said this about me. Well, I'll just move on. I'll just move on. It was a constant running. So I wouldn't say that it was necessarily a sex addiction. It was a running addiction.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to run away from my problems. I wanted to lie about them. I wanted to run away from them. I wanted to create space in the easiest way possible.
I think it was also competition with yourself. You're a very competitive person. So am I.
100%.
But I think you were not just in competition with like your friends, guys like, oh, how many girls can I get with? Whatever. No. But also in competition with yourself of like, well, okay, this girl's super into me, but I can have that girl, and she's super into me, but then I can have this other girl, and it's like, how many can you juggle at once? And then when it all falls apart, whatever, I can go get 10 more tomorrow. No problem.
I'll just disappear.
Yeah.
It's true, though. And
it's like, how long can I keep this going?
Me and my friends were never sure, we like maybe in high school and in our early 20s, we talk about girls and stuff like that. But as time grew forward, they all grew up. I had a podcast last week where I was talking to my best friend, and I was telling him, I said, I've watched you had to grow up fast. I just grew up the other day. And it's a weird thing to say, but it's an honest thing to say, and it's one thing that I've learned recently by following these people, that if I'm going to actually do something and get rid of my anxiety, or at least know how to harness it, I have to be honest.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to think about it, is not getting rid of anxiety, but harnessing it, because that's an energy that you can use towards being productive. Like having that nervous energy, that anxious energy, you can harness that into doing something else. You just have to figure out how to get your emotions in check so that you can move forward.
A lot of it's been putting stuff away.
Yeah.
Like if I get anxious and I'm like, oh, I'm going to go do this for 5 minutes. Well, yeah, but that 5 minutes is never 5 minutes. It's going to turn into me scrolling or looking or whatever it is for 20, 30, 40 minutes.
Right.
And then I just ate up what I could have been doing something very productive, which then leads to me being more upset, which then leads to me, it's like learning where that harness is sometimes just to put something away. And this week, when everybody had left and all was done and all I wanted to do was keep drinking and keep just like spiraling and eating and doing all the things, because that's right now. Like that's, I would say my my present tick is, well, I gained 2 pounds. Like,
may as well gain 20.
I might as well gain 5 more. I'll lose it next week, or I'll try to lose it next week. And then next week comes and I'm like, whatever,
It's easy to get down on yourself and just keep beating yourself up and letting it go and letting it go. And then you get to a point where you're like, well, how do I get out of this? I've dug this hole so deep.
Well, these chairs can only hold so much weight.
You're nowhere near the weight limit.
And look, I know that I crack jokes about this because I think that's always been something for me to also deal with, a real subject.
It's a defense mechanism.
It is, but I think too there has to be a little humility in yourself. That you have to be able to look at yourself and be like, okay, I'm being ridiculous right now. And I am. Most of the time you're the first person to tell me like, you're being ridiculous.
I do tell you that plenty.
And it's come from being so hard on myself or being so, like you said earlier, in competition. I'm not someone that really looks at other people and says, I want to be them. I want to be me, but I want to be the best me.
Right.
And whether the best me is...
Competition with yourself is the most fierce.
But sometimes the best me is that I just want to be the drunkest Phil, which is that's the hole though.
Right. That's the hole.
And so then there's the other side. And I'm very flip. Well, I shouldn't say it now, but I used to be very flip-flop. Like, I could be in the gym one day, super up for a week, 2 weeks, be losing weight, being good. One thing hits me, boom, down.
Right.
This was the first, like last week, or I guess the beginning of this week.
2 weeks, yeah.
It was the first time that I had experienced that at a really real level in a while. And it was automatically, I just wanted to keep eating pizza and just being bad. And what's crazy though is we had just a great week.
I mean, we did. We had a great 2 weeks, but there were some tough times in those 2 weeks that I think very much attributed to everything.
Well, and I have always run. So family, to me, I always ran away from my family, not because I didn't want to deal with them, because it just... From a young age, I just always had to deal with them.
Well, and you and your family weren't close growing up. And you're getting closer now, which is a wonderful thing. But understandably, that can trigger
well, it was
reactions in you.
Yeah, well, it was like close. And then a good chunk of my life was separate.
Right.
And then now it's like, okay, well, that's not the healthiest thing to not have family in my life.
For sure.
And so I really have been making a better effort to come back around.
And so have they.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in like 3 family group chats.
I know. I love it. I love it.
Which is, to me, I would have got, or, maybe 3 years ago, Phil would have exited those.
Yeah. 3 years ago, Phil, I would have been trying to talk you into participating more in family things.
Yeah. So what's something that you what's your present? Because mine isn't fixed. I think this will kind of stick around for a while, and it'll be something that I deal with, but it's not as... Nothing's good in excess, right?
Right.
I just need
100%.
to learn how to harness like the days that I do want to have 13 beers. Well, the next day, then I just have to suck it up and wake up and work out and eat healthy.
Yeah.
But there shouldn't be too many of those.
No, not too many. But again, there is nothing wrong with a little vacation every once in a while. It's just making sure that vacation doesn't turn into something else.
A staycation?
Yeah.
So what would be one of your present, like, maybe triggers and vices?
Well, I have to say that I feel like I am doing much better and handling things much better and like differently than I would have previously.
Yeah.
So I really, a lot of time, I would say I have very little anxiety nowadays.
That's good.
It certainly comes in if there is something big and crazy going on with work that just requires a whole lot. But that's not really anxiety as much as just maybe some stress because of trying to make sure that I balance wanting to absolutely crush it at work and be the very best at what I do.
Yeah.
As well as making sure that I am the very best at being a wife and a mother.
Yeah. Whoa. God bless you.
Excuse me.
There's a panoramic still happening.
There is.
Thank you for sneezing.
It's just allergies. Fall's coming. But
can I say one thing that I don't think you addressed earlier, but I think a lot of people deal with is their significant other traveling or leaving.
Mm-hmm. And that's very different now.
I think even though you said work earlier, I think your biggest anxiety once you met me was
you being gone, 100%.
Well, and I used to ghost you. I used to disappear.
You did. I was not having that. Yeah. I mean, and that's a past thing. You know, you asked me a question about the present, but jumping into the past real quick. Yeah, you being gone.
Well, because you brought up work twice.
Was really hard.
Me being gone was more than work at times.
Well, it absolutely was, but what it did is to deal with my anxiety of you being gone.
Yeah.
I pushed myself farther and farther and deeper into work.
Which
made me anxious in a different way, but it was a distraction from the anxiety of, well, what's he doing? Where is he? Who is he with? You know, does he really love me? You know, like all the things that go through your mind in a relationship in general are multiplied 100. A million times over when your significant other is gone. I mean, really, I mean, up until COVID, you and I had barely spent any time together consistently.
Yeah, we were a managing relationship.
Yeah. So, I mean, 100% that caused me a lot of anxiety.
I was a visiting team always.
Yes, you were always the visiting team. So that for sure caused me a lot of anxiety. And, you know, I dealt with that in some unhealthy ways for sure, besides just diving into my work. I mean, I was not eating healthily or enough.
Yeah.
You know, I was definitely drinking too much wine, smoking too much weed, trying to escape for sure. And there were other things going on in my life with family and things like that through all of that also added a whole lot of stress and anxiety into the mix. But I would say with you being home, which, I mean, even if you were traveling now, I think I'm in a healthier mindset in general.
Well, we had to go through it.
Yeah, we went through a lot to get there. So having you here, seeing what a wonderful husband and father you are and how hard you do work at being a father and how hard you work on this podcast and everything like that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
A huge, huge difference. So I'm very rarely am I anxious.
Well, that's good though.
Yeah.
I would never wish anxiety on my biggest enemy.
Right.
I think that's one of the hardest things to deal with because it can spike you in the weirdest places.
Absolutely.
Know, it can make you go from feeling up to feeling 100 million% down instantly. I don't know. There's something that it had hit me so hard last week, and I remember even telling you, I was like, I think I want to do this episode because of this, and it's so weird because I don't have a lot of anxiety, so it really was something that struck me as like, wow,
yeah,
I thought that I'd figured it out. But
it's also a good reminder, I think, like you said earlier, in humility and things like that we never fully have it figured out.
No. And I'd never allowed myself to be, and not humiliated, but I'd never humbled myself.
Yeah.
I'd always looked at myself as untouchable. in many ways.
Yeah.
I always looked at myself as, well, that can never happen to me.
Right.
That's a very nice thing. I'm sorry it happened to you, but I'm going to go my way, and you figure out how to deal with it. Be a man. Tough it out. Which I still am very hard on myself that way. Like, come on, figure it out. There has to be an answer to this. But the answer isn't always black and white.
No, it's not always clear, and it doesn't always just reveal itself automatically either. Well, it takes a lot of digging to find it sometimes.
I think we always hope that we can find the answer. And so when I started thinking about this podcast, I was like, well, you know what was really interesting was we went through some stuff right before I worked at that warehouse. Mm-hmm. And I just started listening to podcasts for the first time. Yeah. So this podcasts to me are very still not only new as a career, but new as me listening to them and understanding just how awesome they can be to help guide you to just maybe something. Yeah. Maybe the person you're listening to doesn't necessarily have even the answer, but they might spark something in your ear that you're like, whoa.
Sometimes it's nice just to know that somebody else is going through something similar, or just going through something in general, because like social media, everybody makes it look like their lives are perfect all the time.
Well, haven't you looked at mine?
Yeah, it's this fake filter where people aren't talking about the real deal and what's actually happening. So being able to hear or see people talk about the tough times in life in addition to the good times is super valuable.
Yeah, and the deeper I dive into these, look, I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, you name it, Twitter now. I'm on them all, right? Mm-hmm. And most of the people I follow are very, very positive influencers that they don't just tell you like, oh yeah, like I made it, I'm rich, check out my 30 Ferraris. Yeah. They're like, I struggled. Right. I went to the darkest place and I had to pull myself out. And I didn't pull myself out alone. Mm-hmm. I was like, whoa, hold on. So there was one person specifically. And I'd always toured with this one guy, Elliot. Mm-hmm. And he would read this book by a guy named Jordan Peterson. Yep. And I think that we both can agree that whatever anxieties we have now, we share the similar... I wouldn't say fix is the word, but the similar where we go to unwind. Sure, music's still there. Sure, working out's still there. But there's one big one. And when I started learning about this Jordan Peterson guy...
I remember when we first listened to him.
Well,
you had listened to him before when we first listened to his podcast, I guess.
But he always had these little blips that I would see from YouTube, or I'd see him on, maybe Facebook or something like that. He always had these like really like make your bed in the morning. You know, like these really like powerful things. Like if you make your bed, at least you can come home.
I remember when you started forcing me to make the bed every morning. I was like, why do we have to do this? And now every morning I'm like, want to make the bed?
But it's a win at the end of the day. Yeah. Even if
got something done, that was productive.
Maybe that wasn't his like. There's been two people I've heard. There was a general that gave a speech at the Longhorns, University of Texas at Austin. That was a very like powerful, like same kind of idea. Like at least do one thing. And he had that same kind of go mentality. And I was like, okay. So as we toured, he was reading this book called The 12 Rules for Life. And I was like, well, though I was being a complete dirtbag, I mean, there's not really any other way to slice it. Yeah. I was like, yeah, you need to live by these. And I was sitting here telling this guy, like, yeah, you should live by those rules. And I wasn't even living by them. So out of the pandemic, out of these tours, whatever, boom, here I am, faced with the biggest choice of my life. Is like, here I go. Do I just sit here and do nothing, or do I just go get a job just to fill the time? Yeah. I'm not making my 6-figure salary anymore. Yeah. Or it wasn't a salary, but my 6-figure paychecks anymore. Like, so how do I do this? Well, I'm just going to go get a job. I'll figure it out. Well, I had nothing but time. And so I put him on in my ears. And I remember the first podcast that blew my mind, that as I scrolled down his little list of podcasts to listen to, it was the Bible. And I was like, I had to chuckle a little bit, because the only times that I really went to church was at Christmas, and that's it was a tradition at that point.
You went to make your family happy.
Yeah, I was
or to make my family happy.
Whatever, okay, here we go. I'll put on a smile and I'll stand and
it's only an hour. I'll make it through. It's
only an hour.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, this guy's kind of pushed my whole life for the last couple years. Why is he talking about the Bible?
Right.
And it was one of those moments in life where I said, okay, well, right now I have nothing. I have a family, so I do have something. I shouldn't say nothing, but I'm at a low point in my life.
Yep.
Where do I go? Mm-hmm. Well, maybe I go here. Maybe I listen to what he's going to say.
Yeah.
And I did. And he started at Genesis chapter 1, verse 1.
And it wasn't him preaching.
No.
It was him breaking down the stories in the Bible.
He was basically playing it was like watching someone break down a mathematical problem to me, because I've always been a very analytic person. So it's like, well, okay, we'll go through it. Let me see your point, because I've already heard other people's points.
Right.
And it was always forced upon me, and I never wanted to. Don't force that. Don't force anything on me, because I'm going to make my own. I am Phil. I will do my own thing. I can do this. And so when he went in and he started, some of the first words out of his mouth, I was like, wait, what? I've never heard that before. I've never, ever heard that before. And here's this guy that I look to, because not for everything. I wouldn't say that I agree with every single statement he's made, but I can agree that you do have to work hard in life.
Absolutely.
You do have to do stuff that is definitely hard, and it's not fair all the time.
No, the majority of the time it's not.
It is not fair, and if you think that it's going to be fair, or that you think that you're owed something, so there I was like going, well, should I continue listening to this guy? And I did. I listened to the whole, he had 16 podcasts. Each were like 2.5 hours long. And he didn't even get through the first book of the Bible.
Yeah.
And I was completely intrigued. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I was like, this is unreal. So then he had 16 other episodes of this thing called the Maps of Meaning, right? And I said, okay, well, now he's going to get into like the real stuff. Like the Bible that was a good start. But now he's going to really explain to me what life is about. But then it all went back to the Bible again. And I was like, what is going on here? This is unreal. I was like, and my grandmas, both my grandmas, were very religious people.
Yeah.
And I'll just say this. I always felt like they both talked to me.
Yeah.
And I lost one of them during the pandemic.
Yep.
And she lived to be like 96.
Yep.
I lost another one when I was out on tour. And they were both heart-wrenching for me, because
we were together through both of their
think in my family, those were the two people that meant the most to me. So here I am. Someone's talking to me. I'm like, dang it, Grandma.
Somebody's trying to influence you from up there.
I'm like, here we go again.
Always looking out for you.
So I kept going with his podcast, and then he interviewed this guy named Bishop Barron.
Oh, love him.
Blown away. And it was crazy because he wasn't it wasn't a preacher. It was like this guy that was just as smart as this guy that I thought was smart that like had no. I'm like, wait, hold on. How are these two having the most intelligent conversation in the world?
Coming from totally opposite ends of the spectrum. One who believes in God and one who does not, and is trying to prove that believing in God is crazy.
Part of life.
Yeah.
No, he's not saying it's crazy. He's just telling you, like, you can fight it. You can fight it all you want. But humanity believes in you have a belief.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say
something.
that. Look, I'm not going to go and preach to people and tell them that they have to go do whatever. But I'll tell you this: 35 years of my life, I lived the most unreligious life ever. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, you name it. Right? I came home, and I told you I think we need to start going to church. And I'll go on a limb and say that since that day, my anxiety, every time I fight it, I can reach to God, and I can. Prayer is a very weird thing to me still. Like, I'm not going to be honest and say that it's magical and somehow it fixes everything.
No.
But there's something to be said when you listen to two guys from completely different spectrums have a conversation on how your psyche is directed by something way higher.
I agree. And I also think, for me, my biggest relief of anxiety or stress is absolutely through prayer or through God, 100%. And for me, because of my faith, it is because I believe that when I pray and when I let go of things, give them to God, so to speak, there is a major release in letting go of control of something.
Yeah.
Especially when you can't control it. We operate under this illusion as humans that we can control everything around us if we just figure out the right equation, the right formula. If we do this, then that will happen. If we don't do this, then this will happen. And that's not the way that life goes. We cannot control 99.9% of the things around us or the things that happen to us. And so when I have anxiety or stress or am going through something really hard, I have, and it didn't used to be this way, but I have grown into this wonderful comfort of being able to, even if it's not saying a specific prayer or something like that, just saying, I don't know what to do about this or how to handle this.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm not supposed to know. So I'm just going to trust that you are going to help me figure it out. And I may not like the answer.
Yeah.
It may not be what I want.
Yeah.
But eventually I'm going to understand it better.
Yeah.
And be able to move forward from it and actually put it behind me versus stressing out about it over and over and over and over and over again.
Let's try
because I can't let go of it.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to fix it.
And maybe it's not a fix, but maybe it's like, well, I can at least get it as like taped up as possible.
Yeah.
Like maybe I broke the china and I can get it pieced back to as best as I can, but it's never going to be perfect.
Right.
And I think that that's a real thing that's also hit me too, is that no matter what I do, I'll never be perfect. There's no such thing as perfect, and there's no way that I can ever attain perfect, because at that point, then I'm God.
Right.
And there was something real about listening to two guys at such a high level of caliber, and just in general, like with the way that they talk, to the way that they talk back and forth about things that were real in my life. Like, I remember the bishop one day was talking about The Big Lebowski.
Right, yeah.
And I had to start at podcast 0001 of his, because I was like, okay, why is this Catholic bishop talking about The Big Lebowski? Oh, wow, now he's talking about The Simpsons, but he's not dogging them.
Right.
I'm like, hold on a second.
He's not saying, don't watch this, it's the devil.
This is crazy. And he had some of the best things to say about those shows that were like, wow, it's all around me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all, any person that says, oh, that is, you'll never find it in there. These guys were finding it in the craziest places, and in like lyrics, or in poems, or in books, or in just day-to-day life. And I was like, okay, Grandma.
I'm hearing you.
Okay, grandmas.
Picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah, okay, let me dive into this. And it's it's like you said earlier. Maybe there isn't a specific prayer that I pray, or maybe there isn't a specific thing that I'm like. But knowing that everything else that I've tried didn't fix it.
Yeah.
Me, myself, I couldn't fix it because I wasn't smart enough.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't find a book on that either.
Yeah.
So maybe I should just talk to this guy who I've never talked to before.
Yeah.
And let me see if what these two guys are saying starts to help me.
Absolutely. Well, and I think, just as like a random example, like with my high blood pressure. I mean, I've always been very healthy when it comes to that, like perfect blood pressure. And really, I mean, I've had a couple of health issues, but like sinus infections, nothing like major as an adult.
Yeah.
And that has definitely given me anxiety because we have heart disease in my family, and high blood pressure can lead to heart disease if not handled properly, which is one of the number one killers of women.
Yeah.
And I want to be around for you and our kids and everything. Nice. And yeah, I'm going to do my best. And so being able to, I mean, I take my blood pressure once a week with a blood pressure cuff we have at the house. And every time I take it, I can feel the anxiety coming in.
I can hear it.
I can feel it. Like as soon as the little cuff turns on, it makes that noise. I'm just like, oh man, here we go. And I just sit there and I pray like, okay, even if this is high, there is nothing I can do about it. I'm doing everything I possibly can. I'm taking the medicine. I'm eating healthy.
Yeah.
I'm doing the things I'm supposed to do. And I just have to trust that God's got my back on that.
Yeah.
Or if I have a nightmare in the middle of the night, which I have nightmares fairly often, and I will wake up and just lay there and I can feel my heart like pounding out of my chest. A lot of times now it's about our son. And I will just lay there and pray and eventually go back to sleep. No more nightmares.
Yeah. It's definitely something that is very intense and deep that I never gave thought to because it was always maybe explained to me in a childish way. So when I heard, these two brilliant men talk about it in a real way, yeah, okay, maybe when I do have a nightmare. Well, I don't have nightmares because I sleep through the night.
You sleep amazing.
I probably do, but I just
you just don't remember them. I wake up all the time.
But when I have anxiety about stuff that I can't change, maybe it is about the thought was put there. I'm no genius. Why do I have where did I get this thought to do this? Like it wasn't just randomly like I didn't just magically poof out of nowhere think this up.
I thought you were going to say magically poop.
Sometimes that happens. Sometimes.
Sorry, but when you said, I was like, oh, we're totally changing the subject here.
Wow, where is he going with this? Like maybe his medium spiced.
Yeah, whatever that.
Fill with ice cold
daily beer. Amount of sodium that's in your one just beverage. Woo.
But there's something to be said though, and I've realized that a lot of my friends do the same thing. I've also realized that I don't care if people hate on me because I go to church now or I pray now or I do those things.
No.
Those anxieties have been gone because you know what? This makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And when I'm scared or
when
I have a hard day or but the most amazing part about it is after a day like that or after a day where I've had, the other day, Monday or no, Tuesday. Wednesday was one of the most productive days I've had for the podcast in a long time. It's allowed me to be the most creative. It allowed me to do some things and put myself out there in a way that I wouldn't have put myself out there because I think too, with understanding that it's not me, it allows me to be very unselfish all of a sudden. It allows me to not worry just about me.
Yeah.
It reminds me like, oh yeah, I have this little ball of love a few rooms over, and if I allow myself to fail because I'm scared, then what do I show him?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Then all of a sudden I'm like, all right, God, give me that strength. Maybe it's not I'm asking for, like I've never asked for $1 million. I don't think he's going to give me $1 million.
Right, yeah. That's the thing about prayer. You don't just get what you ask for.
Well, that is a very true thing. Like it's not that I'm asking for him to give me an idea. Like, oh, give me the next guest. I'm like, all right, I'm having, like, just give me some strength here.
Yeah.
And however anyone, I don't know how this all ends. I don't know what goes on, but I can tell you that I do feel strength.
That's amazing.
I do feel less
some
anxiety.
sort of peace. Yeah.
And I think that peace, or if that's what you want to call it, or if that just, sense of all of a sudden like calmness comes about and says, okay, well, what do you have to do then? Well, I shouldn't be looking at boobs on Instagram.
Nope. Yeah.
Right?
I would agree with that statement.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, though, is that little piece of nugget, that's the future hitting you.
Right.
Okay, well, where did that come from?
Right.
Because if I would have allowed myself to keep going down that path, I would have just kept looking at boobs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that to me is prayer. That to me is talking to God.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's me getting rid of that anxiety that turns into me sitting on the couch eating a bag of Lay's.
Scrolling through things that you shouldn't be scrolling through.
Scrolling through things I shouldn't be scrolling through, and eventually drinking a case of beer.
Yeah. Because you're trying to quiet those inner demons.
Well, I'm just
one way or another.
Exactly. And I used to be able to quiet them quite well.
Well,
but when they popped back up the next day.
When you're putting them to sleep via alcohol, that will definitely do it. But then they come back the next day and you feel really terrible, and then you're even weaker than when you started.
Well, what's crazy is like I used to put them to sleep, but they were louder actually. I just didn't notice them because I was too busy talking about how cool I was.
Yeah, well. I mean, you are pretty cool.
You're sweet for saying that. But I do think, though, that people who fight anxiety, this isn't the fix. I'm not telling you that you all of a sudden need to go out and pray, and if it doesn't happen, then you can write me a nasty letter. What I'm saying is that it does take something special to happen to you that takes you back. Like, would I love for all of everyone I know to say, oh my gosh, I love God just as much as you do, Phil?
Of course.
Sure, that'd be awesome.
But that's not everybody's path.
But that's not for me to take them there.
No.
They have to journey on their own. And it's a journey, and life is a journey. And part of that is anxiety. Part of it is depression. Part of it is going to the darkest place and coming out.
Yeah, on the other side.
When Jordan Peterson used a Bible analogy and then used Pinocchio in the same way, it blew my mind, because at such a young age, you can be taken to these places and shown you can go down some really rough paths, but you can also come out of some really rough paths.
Yeah,
but it's not just you who does it. And if you look at a lot of these Disney movies, and if you look at a lot of these like hierarchy movies where there's the character goes to that dark place, sure, they might not be using God that's pulling them out, but they're getting pulled out by someone else.
Yeah.
And that's something to be said, because it really does play on your heartstrings, no matter who you are.
Absolutely.
And to say that we all don't have a heartstring, then, I mean, that'd be like saying, like, well, I know some metal bands that are great fathers. Like,
for sure.
That'd be crazy for me to ever say that not I mean, there's probably like 4 humans in the world that don't have heartstrings.
Yeah, they're buried deep somewhere.
Oh, look at the deer back over there.
Oh, are they?
But
oh, they are. They're playing.
It's just interesting, and I really wanted to touch on this because, at the end of the day, we've come a long way. We have. We've gone to a dark place, and we've come out. And right now, I want to say that thank you for being the person that helps me, along with God.
Same here.
To fight these anxieties and to fight these demons and to fight my past. And I know that the future is brighter because of you and because of our little one and because of having this release and being able to engage with people in a new way too. And
I 100% agree. And, I think the last thing I'll say on all of this, I think in addition to our faith and the other ways that we've learned to deal with anxiety, I think the other major component has been communication. 100%. Us being able to talk to each other about the hard things and the great things. I enjoy deep down going through the hard times with you and talking them out just as much as the good times, because it just brings us closer. We learn, we grow,
100%.
and we move forward together. And I'm just so grateful to get to do that with you.
Yeah. And I just want to say thank you, BK.
Thank you, PK.
On that note, I think we should bottoms up. But before we do that, I just want to say thank you to everyone who is supporting this, who's watching this, who's listening to this.
Yes.
Thank you to all of you that comment, that like, that
subscribe,
follow.
Tell your friends and family, tell your enemies, tell all the people.
Look, we could say it all day long. We know that it's just without y'all helping us and being a part of this, then we're nothing. So please, as you venture down these podcasts and you like something, please let us know, because it only helps us create better content in the future.
Yeah, or if you hate it, let us know.
Or if you hate it, let us know, because these are the things that are going to eventually help me continue down this path of being in a new career. So
absolutely.
Thank you all.
Thank you guys. We love you.
PK.
I'm BK.
Oh yeah. Again, I did that again.
Thank you, PK.
Well, this I think the sodium's
the chilada. Yeah, the sodium is getting you.
I don't know if I can. The bottom of this looks like a salt shaker.
Oh, man. I will not force you to bottoms up that, because I want your heart to not explode.
All right.
So how about we just cheers?
Let's go get a double quarter pounder.
Sounds delicious. Thanks, everybody. Bottoms up.
Bottoms up. Cheers.